So yeah, I was really excited. Just, I figured with Andy being a big fan of Splotter and with it coming with that merger attorney, I figured it'd be really interesting. So Andy's an interesting bit of a gamer to deal with because he has specific sort of quirks, like the fact that he hates any deck builder that forces you to gain cards to your discard. He wants the cards right away. And he also, wants every game to be designed by Splotter. But we're already
here, Madre. I'm expanding.
He wants it published by Hollandspiel.
Oh no, Hollandspiel's okay.
Yeah, good one, DC. Or just published by somebody who just releases the PDF and expects you to do it yourself.
Well, that's a challenge. I mean, I understand that. Like, I dare you to play my game.
I came as close to Andy as I ever have today, because I actually got two things. Two things made me come close to Andy. First of all, I'll talk about this on my hype section. Woo! Great Zimbabwe came in, and it's an oddly competent Splotter production. And what I mean production-wise. Right, I'm not trying to criticize their gameplay at all. I've gone on air before saying I really enjoy them. But this one right here, the Great Zimbabwe, to me has just a beautiful, distinct art feel that no. I feel like there's not any board games really that pull off a really like having. I feel like Mombasa is set in Africa, but it has like all the artwork is of frilly white dudes, and it's awful. Like Great Zimbabwe is legitimately. Has, and I'm no expert in Africa, so I don't want to call it authentic African art, but it has a distinct art style that to me, does not make it look like a traditional Euro game. And it calls to mind its source material, which would be Africa. Yeah, but not being an expert on it, I don't want to say anything, that would be misguided. So anyway, I got a Splotter game today. So that first of all makes me like Andy. Second thing, I got this in German. It's the Palaces of Carrara. And I actually made pay stubs. Like I had to cut pieces of paper, kind of like what you do all the time, Tony, when you're designing things. Yeah, I did that for the first time ever, making me kind of like Andy because Andy prefers games that are so incompetently produced. You have to produce your own boards, tokens. You have to do special things to the components to make them actually usable or to make it so that they're, not going to poison you because of the, some weird reaction the ink has when it gets on human skin. No, Andy, nothing?
I thought he was talking about I thought he was talking about my Avalon Hill copy of Nexus Ops with the toxic glow in the dark pieces.
That actually I've heard is
we
really
got
cool
some old school miniature games from when I was a kid have lead in them still. No,
chewing them in your mouth.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got to get you guys a link here really quick. I'm going to get a link so that you guys can get into the YouTube chat because we'll have a live chat, and it looks like we've already got a couple of folks joining us right now. So looks like we got Norm and we got Jerry, and I'll give you guys that link.
I'm sure.
And check here in the chat of our Hangout, and you can just click on that. That's just a pop out that way. Bandwidth wise, my computer could not hold streaming myself and watching myself, which in a weird way is kind of like looking at yourself in two parallel mirrors. But also is maddening because it's 10 seconds behind, and so you're hearing everything you heard 5 seconds ago. So, yeah. But anyway, it's good to hear from you guys, Jerry and Norm, and we'll look forward to hearing more as it goes on. Yeah, and all the rest of you outlaws out there, you should come and join us as we record live every Thursday nights at about 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get the episode kicked off. This will be episode 147. We got Tony Chen on the episode to join us, or Chen Tony. It's depends on where we're marketing to, right? So
yeah.
So, but I'll do it based on what I've seen on boxes that I've played. All right. So you're Tony Chen because I don't get too confused. But we're gonna go ahead and get this kicked off. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm joined tonight by two regular co-hosts, Andrew Dennison. Hey, how's it going, Andy?
Pretty good. We had a snow day today, so I didn't have to do anything hard.
You mean your job is harder than being at home and dealing with...
Yeah. I don't know. 100 middle schoolers in a day, most people would classify that as stuff.
Yeah, if Andy comes to game night after school, I can usually smell him from that, the contact with those. No, Andy, it's great to hear. I was also, the snow day affected my school as well. Me and Andy are both teachers here in central Iowa. And for me, I ended up, like I told the guys earlier, doing my first, one of my first do-it-yourself board game paste-up projects to make the palaces, Die Palast van Carrara, into the palaces of Carrara, at least for its scoring goals. I even used colored pencils because I don't have a color printer at my house. I shaded over things with colored pencil. Yes, Andy, go ahead and laugh. You've done that before, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure you have. It's funny.
No,
anyway,
I have a laser printer, man.
Andy has I suppose Andy, you actually probably have a more professional studio for making games than some of the publishers you buy games from.
Yeah, it's possible.
The next step in Andy's board game career is to make an 18xx game that he's going to sell 30 copies
Design
of.
Yes. 30 copies of.
No, my one game idea, they said everyone has a game idea, and I do have my one, and it's the stupidest thing in the world, so it will never sell. Because I want to make...
Yes.
It probably would...
No, wait, no, there's two. 18xx, the dexterity game.
No, yeah. No, the other one actually sounds like a good idea, right? What is the other one?
A logistics game about the digestive system.
No, Andy, it was supposed to be 18 Sodor.
That was one as well. I recommend Panamax as a jumping off point for this digestive tract game.
Actually, that's a really good point.
That's what I thought when I played the dang game. The colon company, and it's a canal you're pushing stuff out of. Guys.
Okay, all right. Thanks, TC. We have my other two regular co-hosts here are biology people. You're hearing right now from TC Reed. How are you doing over there in Portland, where it's not freezing cold and snowing?
No, we just got mudslides all up over here on this side of the world.
Yeah.
It's just raining like crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we've got not only guys.
It's cold in Iowa, but a tauntaun ran past the window today.
If he was living, then it's not that cold.
Yeah.
All right, but it's not just us on this podcast today. We've also got a special guest designer all the way from across the world. Right? What time is it over there right now, Tony?
11 in the morning.
11 in the morning. Wow, yes, 9 p.m., 11 in the morning. You just heard from Tony Chen of Monsoon Publishing. He has designed Iberian Rails and the upcoming Warriors of Jogu. Tony, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
So we are going to actually be interviewing Tony during our episode's topic section. We're expecting... I just really want to hear Tony's background because he was selling a Kickstarter on the opposite points that I've normally seen, and something I really respected, and that was this game was designed and developed by over 300 playtests. When I saw that, it was like, whoa, nobody sells Kickstarters based on actual gameplay. That's unheard of. You can't do that, sir. That's illegal. But it was so wonderful, and I thought it was such a nice change of pace and something that really spoke to me and where I am as a gamer, and that's why I picked up Iberian Rails, and after the product came in, I thought, I want to pick this guy's brain. I want him on the podcast. And Tony, thank you for agreeing to do that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
So weird kind of similarity. My best friend from where I grew up in small town Iowa, his mother was from Taiwan and happens to his family member actually lives in the same place that you live, Tony. So weird, how many degrees of Kevin Bacon can you have? So I sent him a picture, and he now lives over in New York City. But anyway, I thought that was just crazy, that the packages that come from you come from the same place that my buddy goes and visits family over there.
Yeah, it might be the same post office.
Yeah. That'd be crazy. So small world, I guess. All right. Well, Tony has got a review on here that he's going to be doing, and I actually would like to hear from you, Tony. We are going to start into our review section here in a second. Before we do that, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Game Surplus. Check them out at gamesurplus.com. They have a special podcast pick section where not just me, I asked the guys to give me some games, and we all gave Carmen from Game Surplus a listing of the games that they carry that we really like and think there are going to be good purchases that people are going to be very happy with. They put that onto that list. And now, because you're listening to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, you can get the coupon code to get 10% off anything on the podcast picks for The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. If you go add those things to your cart when you check out, the code is Good, Bored, Ugly Picks. That's all one word, no spaces, Good, Bored, Ugly Picks. So go check out some really great games there, including the brand new Gaia project, if it's still in stock. I have no control over that, but Spirit Island, Gaia Project, the biggest games of the year are at Game Surplus, and you can get those games and get them at a discount. And we thank you. So thanks so much to you listeners, and that's something that we offer to you. So now let's go into our review section here. Let's hear from you, Tony, because I am quite excited to hear you tell us about it's like Orleans, but it's I've heard so many different comparisons to it recently. And I want to hear from your perspective what you feel about a South American game from a man with South American experience.
Yeah, I lived in South America for 6 years. Uruguay and Paraguay.
Mm-hmm.
Combined. About Altiplano, I've only played it twice actually, but I want to compare it to Orleans.
Yep.
Well, first off, like there's the smaller differences is in Altiplano they have a discard pile.
Mm-hmm.
So when you use a tile, you put it in your discard pool first.
Okay,
then,
so you're telling me that like when you use a tile in this game, you're actually going to get rid of it, meaning it now goes to like being available to everybody. Whereas in Orleans, which is like a bag builder.
No, not like it's a personal discard pile, but like it's actually like Dominion.
Oh, I got you. So it's almost like they took the elements that made Orleans different, where that it was like all about this bag builder that's different from Dominion, and now it's like we're gonna make this more like Dominion.
yeah. You shuffle through you cycle through your deck properly. Like you'll see everything once, and then you reshuffle. Whereas in Orleans, it's like you shuffle everything back, even though there's still stuff left in the bag. So like technically, like you could like never draw something. Like ever.
Absolutely, yeah. And if it's me, anytime I get one of the wild tokens, the golden ones, that never comes out of my bag.
Yeah, but now it's like Dominion. Everything will be drawn, like you'll see it once through the cycle, and then you shuffle it back in.
Okay.
Like some people like that. Like I think a lot of people who like Orleans, they like that part of Orleans or Orleans, but like I actually think like the way Altiplano does it kind of makes sense. It's kind of like that's how Dominion does it. Like everything, you make sure everything gets seen once. And I think it might be a little bit more necessary in Altiplano than it was in Orleans.
Okay.
Because like in Altiplano, you get some really specific discs.
So you really need them.
Yeah.
So you're counting on them.
Yeah, I think you can really screw it up. Like you never draw them. Whereas in Orleans, I think like it doesn't have that super specific thing going on.
Sure.
And,
I get it. So, were you a big fan of Orleans? Were you a big fan of that game?
I like it. I don't think I'm like a super fan, but like I like it.
Okay. And then, so aside from, of course, like alpacas, which makes everything better, of course. And you'd know this, being
Right. Yeah.
spent so much time in the Andean highlands, right? But aside from alpacas, would you call this heavier or lighter than Orleans?
Oh, I think it's about the same actually, but I think you have to play it. That's the other difference I was getting into. Like, you have to play it. It's like the game rewards inefficiency actually.
Yeah, it rewards you being inefficient.
Yeah, because like in Orleans, like you can like really trim down your pull to the point where you're really efficient. Like you're just drawing the same disc every turn.
Yeah, that's like everybody plays Orleans like that. Like the bag stops even mattering, really.
Yeah. I noticed that. And then you just start like boosting your victory points, which are like all outside your pool, right? Like you build posts and you get like these like good resources, and they don't go into your bag. But in Altiplano, it feels like almost everything you get that will score you points, they're added to your bag. Like you score based on your discs.
Okay. All right. So more like Dominion, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. So you can as you're like really, even when you get your engine going, you're like really adding like your points into your pool, but then you have to keep trashing them. It's like if you have to continually keep trashing them. Whereas in Orleans, like you can stop trashing them. Like you just once you trim it down, you're just hitting, like the bag doesn't matter. But like in Altiplano, like you will always have stuff in your bag, and it's also harder to trash, because in Orleans it was like the public deeds. It was like pretty simple and straightforward. But like in Altiplano, like it's a little bit harder, because like the way the warehousing works, you trash your stuff into your own personal warehouse. And the way warehousing works is like sometimes you have better times to trash versus it might not be ideal to trash this turn, because of the way corn and the warehousing works. So like you're like, so it's like you're managing like a more discs. Like I think like more discs will go in and out of your pools throughout the game, and that's like the of the game.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like what you've said so far almost sounds like these choices in design space has sort of like conserved some of what made Orleans great, but made it maybe better. Maybe you like this one more, Tony, because it pushes it more towards Dominion, which, believe it or not, is kind of the type of thing I need to hear to really get me excited to play this, because I'm in a weird spot with Orleans where I feel like everybody else likes it, and I'm like, it's okay, and I really don't. I wouldn't even go as far as to say that I like it. There are aspects about it that I really don't enjoy. Like I just don't like how the tiles that you get are just immediately gone, and there's only one of everything. It's an aspect of the game that, especially with how critical those become in like the sort of chain that you end up making, that's like I do this to get this to get this to get this, and it's all based on these tiles. And I feel like, especially when I played Orleans, which I haven't played with anything beyond like the base game is what I played the most, and then I played a little bit with the Invasion, the cooperative mode, which everybody just went crazy about. They're like, oh my goodness, it's a cooperative Euro game. Yeah, it's a cooperative Euro game where everything that you do is just like get a whole bunch of stuff and then get rid of it. it's just, to me, it was like not very exciting, and everybody else loved it. I feel like it's one of those weird like it's fine, but I'm not the huge fan. And what you're telling me about Altiplano, not only was I already interested because, like you, Tony, I've got like a passion and a love for like Latin America, and it's this part that I'm not familiar with, so I'm very interested in it. But also like the design choices that have pushed it kind of closer to something that would be, like the aspects about Orleans that were different from Dominion, especially when it comes to the bag. Like I would rather just have it be worked through a deck. That's just kind of where I'm at. Like, the fact that you could have the same token not come out is something I never enjoyed. But it sounds to me like now you no longer have that, and instead you're going to be adding things to your bag that are going to be worth points. That all sounds cool. So I'd be pretty pumped to check this one out. And I'm glad that you chose this one to review so we could talk about your experience in South America. You were in Paraguay and Uruguay and Paraguay for what, 6 years, you said?
Yeah, 6 years total.
Wow. And when you went there, did you already have any knowledge of Spanish?
No, I didn't actually. I learned while I was there. I was pretty young though, so like it wasn't too hard. Like 2nd to 8th grade.
Wow, that's crazy. That is really cool. So from 2nd to 8th grade, you were like in a totally different country, and then somehow along the lines, like you were learning English that whole time too.
Yeah. Well, I went to American school.
Yeah, which that's what blew my mind. Like in American school in Paraguay, like whenever I have my kids do a project where I have them like researching and trying to find like a school online, I swear every kid finds the American school in Paraguay or the American school in Peru. And it's like, nope, you got to choose a different one. They teach in English there. We want to find a, just a high school or a grade school. But what's really interesting to me though is that like you're an alumnus of that of like that school, so really cool. When my kids find that in the future, I'm going to think in my head like, I really want to talk about board games now, as if I don't already enough with my kids. So would you say Altiplano for you is a play it before you buy it, or ignore?
I like the game, but like I think it's a play before you buy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of Orleans, or however you say it, would you say that's you should try this for sure, or would you say that maybe this one pushes it more towards a traditional deck builder, and maybe you'd be better stuck with the Orleans expansions that are already out?
It depends on how much you like Orleans, and like the immediately back to the pull mechanism. But I think a lot of people from Orleans, I think you'll be curious to try it out, but like you might not necessarily like it better.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
For me, I like the Altiplano better because like I just like I just feel like the bureaucrat deck or the garden deck, so to speak, is more interesting to play than like a streamlined chapel deck.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, so instead of just like cutting everything down to nothing like Orleans, you like having to keep these pieces and having to find uses for pieces without just being able to trash so easily. Okay.
Yeah, like you have to find a way to keep yourself inefficient, but then like find stuff to do every turn. I feel like that's more of a challenge in a way. Like.
Yeah, I can appreciate that for sure. Cool. Well, TC, Andy, either of you guys. I mean, Andy, I've heard. I think that we're giving Andy the cold sweats just using the word Orleans in a sentence around him.
The bag.
No, the bag didn't bother me.
Bag, yeah.
What bothered me was I couldn't burn Nate's buildings to the ground after he took the building I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Well, you and I have the same complaints there, then, Andy.
That's another thing with the Altiplano is like the buildings, like the extensions you add, right?
Yeah.
It was Orleans is like along with how you can trim down your board, like, and then the buildings you build is like can get pretty deterministic because they're all available. in Altiplano, like it's kind of like Small World. Like they have this queue, and once you and they slowly become available through the queue. So like it's kind of like there's kind of like a random setup in that part. So like you won't be able to buy whatever you want. Like it depends on the game and how they come up.
Yeah. I think my biggest issue with Orleans anyway was that, and I only played it once because I just was not a fan, but I think one of my biggest issues I had was it just seemed there were like 2 or 3 really good buildings, and because the person who was randomly chose first,
or the person who knew that they were that good, just the person who knew the game.
And so I was the last one to ever go after a building, and I just kind of looked through them. I'm like, these do not look equivalent to the awesomeness that you have taken from me.
I want that. I want what he's having.
Yeah. I don't know. That was also my time period when I was switching to game. Like, I was starting to prefer games that just allowed a lot more interaction, I think. So I can see why it's popular, but yeah, it's not for me.
TC.
I played it once, and it was a deluxe Kickstarter version.
Yeah, I played that one too.
And then I never played it again.
Yeah, that was me too.
I honestly couldn't tell you anything about that game except I remember reaching in going, I really want a knight. And I never got a knight. Is that Orleans?
Well, TC, you love randomness though, man. Come on, that's randomness. Well, like we don't have any knights today. Today you get a monk instead.
Well, that's fine. I guess
give that monk a sword. Send him to the battlefields.
I actually find it more intriguing when someone has to draw up a communal bag that's going to screw them, like Arkham Horror. Oh, you get to reach into this bag now. Okay.
Oh, that's what they needed, a mechanism for you to put discs you want in other people's bags.
Yeah, there you go, man. They give us some real interaction. That would be it.
Like,
Dominion has interaction.
You want a nice lean bag, do you hear? Take another farmer. Have fun.
Or 2 or 3. There you go. I'll go sprinkle that around.
Yeah.
I also remember I had metal coins. Okay.
Yeah, it did. I had the deluxe version. I ended up trading it when I didn't realize that it was in such high demand. I just traded it for like a regular game. Yeah. Because I was just like, yeah, it's a game that doesn't really do anything for me anymore. But, and the thing is, though, there's a lot of people that love Orleans. And I do.
Yeah. It's totally anything.
Yeah, it is. It's like, for me, though, it wouldn't have to do much. I think all it would have to do is just make it so like these tiles are ones that you could like use or something. There'd have to be some sort of design that's not just like, oh, take this action, choose from these available tiles, and now that's yours and nobody else can get it. It's like, with that being the design, nah. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, maybe it's just I get hung up on that. Maybe but totally a me thing though. I get hung up on that. So I do want to try Altiplano though, from what you said, Tony. I think you've sold me on really wanting to get that one tried, but before it gets buyed.
I'm on team.
All right, let's
team llama though. I'm not okay with alpacas.
Oh, this is the game with the alpaca first player token, isn't it?
All right. If anybody...
Yeah, I love that. It's cute. My wife adores alpaca, so I'm imagining this game is going to hit our collection at some point. Just because it's got an alpaca first player. Awesome token.
It is a pretty cool looking token. I want to just.
I'm not helping. I'm sorry. I'm feeling a bit snarky tonight.
Don't worry, TC. My snark's going to come out when it's your turn. Don't worry, man. It all gets paid back. Like you said, revenge. There's going to be some revenge. Don't worry about it, buddy.
Hey.
All right. I'd like to quickly recognize a guy who's in our chat right now, Norm. His son Daniel went to his checkup and is cancer free. So that's a really big deal. I'm super pumped. And yeah, and that's from the Daniel and Daddy, where if you check them out, they do YouTube videos together. Daniel is just, a beacon of light and joy, especially in these cold times that we deal with, me and Andy are dealing with. You guys don't get to share in that, but it is something that certainly, though, can lighten up anybody's day anywhere to know that. So, yes, tell Daniel to keep that fight going. He's got a lot of people on his side. All right, now let's hear from TC.
Oh, me? We're not going to talk about Andy first?
What do you know? Oh, let me draw on the bag. Oh, look, the name, it says TC on here.
Okay. We're going to talk about my review game? Is that what we're talking about, review games? I mean, I got distracted with Orleans. Okay, I wasn't sure where we're at.
Your review your game, TC. Yeah.
Okay.
No, hey, hold on, TC. Let me check in my can here. It says TC.
Okay.
TC in my can.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Well, my I don't know if I should call this a review or call it my penance, because this review has to come with a little caveat. Now, I'm going to be talking about Deadly Premonition, the board game. Now, this game, which I'm going to use loosely, it was based on a video game called Deadly Premonition, which is hands down when it came out. Oh, I don't remember how many years ago it came out. Was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. It was, if you're not aware of it, Google it, look it up. I sent you guys links to it. I think Joe actually looked through it and was silently horrified by the whole thing. And what I did was that year when I played this game, I was like, you know what? Everyone that owns an Xbox 360, because this was a 360 exclusive, is going to get a copy of this video game for Christmas or forever. But the problem was that every GameStop in my area only got one copy of the game. It was only $20. So I went to like 5 different GameStops and I picked up the game and I sent them out to my friends. One of my friends noticed that this game was a Kickstarter and it said, you know what, TC, to pay you back for that Christmas you gave me the video game, I'm giving you the board game. And sure enough, just in time for Christmas, I got a copy of the game, and he actually came over and made sure I had the opportunity to play it. Now, I did look this up on the Kickstarter website. It actually made quite a bit of money, surprisingly. It was, let me scroll up here. It was like 240,000, I think is, no, it's not that much. Hang on. $148,511 out of a $50,000 stretch goal, which means it made all its stretch goals. Now, the stretch goals of this game were amazing. It comes with a coffee cup right here. See, coffee cup, right? It comes with a soundtrack to the game. I kid you not. Soundtrack to the game.
Which was described in the review that you shared with me as the most inappropriate soundtrack of all time.
It comes with postcards, which I'm probably going to send to you guys if you're ever dumb enough to give me your physical addresses. It came with a cloth map, which is the quote unquote board, because this is not a board game. This is a card game, and a very bad one at that. It does have player boards where you put cards on. Now, what you're doing, and it also comes, more importantly, it comes with roll cards that you put in these little sleeves here, which have no effect on the game whatsoever. It's an optional thing where you where's it say in the rule book? This is amazing. This rule book looks thick, but it's like in like 5 different languages, so it's actually only a 5-page rule book, which is surprisingly concise. You can actually play this thing. It is here we go, optional. For extra fun, deal an agent bio card to each player and role play them for the entire game. Guess what I did?
Yep.
I role played the entire game. Because the character I got was a sheriff who, for some inexplicable reason in the video game, just like man pumps the whole game with like weights. So I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm going to draw this card. Look at me. Look at the guns. Yeah. So what you do in this game is you're randomly selected a role. You're either an investigator or one person's the killer. Okay. And you're supposed to deduce this somehow. How, I don't know. You're each given a board with 8 characters, and they start and they're suspicious. And you draw 5 cards, and you get 2 actions on your turn. You either play a card and it has a screen symbol, and you can move one of your characters up and make him innocent. Or you can play it against another person's character who is innocent and say, I accuse him. And then you do this weird back and forth thing where it's just whatever random card you have, you can like win, and then you draw more cards. And then at the end of the game, when all your guys are innocent, you can make a final accusal and figure out who the killer is. Now, this is the best part of the game that I did not mention, because I'm going to bring this just to watch you lose your mind, Joe, because there's an action you can take where you say, I'm going to play this weather card. And you draw a weather card, and it says, check the weather. And you can murder your own agent, your own suspects, by rolling a 6-sided die.
Oh,
and it's like 1 through 6, and you got 6 spots. So if you roll 3 up, he's murdered. Now, the killer wins this game if like 8 or I don't know how many people are killed. So if you're murdering your own people, you're basically giving away you're the killer, and you can't kill other people. You can just kill your own suspects. You
Is it
just
like random though? So can you actually?
You just do this. It's a random card. You get a random card to draw a random card to roll the die, which is random to try to kill one of your guys. It's like this.
So you're like giving it away horribly.
Yeah, like but what's really funny is that you just want the game to end anyway, so you're killing your own people just to take yourself out as quick as possible. So people are accusing you, TC, you're the killer. I'm like, no, I'm not the killer. I just want out.
Right? You actually wanted the game to end?
Like,
what?
How fast can this end? It gets better. If someone accuses you and like you're out of the and like okay, you're out, but you on your turn you still get to roll a die to kill your people. Because it's the weirdest thing I've ever played. I knew at the beginning of we had our 2018 predictions. We had these dire predictions about the industry. I'm actually a little hopeful out of this game because this game tells me that if you like something and you're passionate about it and you can create something and you get other people to fund it, you can make it. So hopefully Disney won't buy out everything because they'll still have weird stuff like this hitting. Oh, and I forgot the best part of the exclusive. It comes with a letter from the designer of the video game that makes no sense whatsoever. He just wrote some stuff that says, I am very happy to present you Deadly Premonition, the board game. I think that a really interesting and deep board game has been completed. He thinks. He had nothing to do with this. He just wrote this. It's like, thank you for remembering I made this game. Have fun.
Nice.
I think I would have rather backed the one Trent linked on our chat a couple days ago, which was for the best upcoming yard game ever. And you pay $60 for a 5-gallon bucket, a rubber ball, and a shellacked piece of wood.
Yeah, this is insane.
I think you would have came out ahead if that's what you had received.
Looking here at the Kickstarter, TC, I don't see anything about how many times they play tested it.
These guys don't think even. I tried finding these guys on Board Game Geek to see what else they designed. I don't think designed anything else. The publisher, which is like what's the publisher's like Rising Star Games or Red Star Game. The only other thing they've done was the actual video game. So I'm thinking they're like, oh, good, we can just make some more money. Knock yourself out.
What's bizarre to me is that you actually wanted this game to end. I feel like I'm not sure if I even know you anymore. I thought that you lived for these types of games.
Well, I do, and I'm going to carry this around with me for this in case when you see, you'll be like, "Oh God, I hope you don't have this game, Liam. I hope you don't." I would like to point out that our sponsor is Game Surplus, and Game Surplus specializes in finding hard to find games. Contact Carmen.
You do that at your own.
And ask for Deadly Premonition, the board
at your
game.
own peril. At your own peril. Carmen doesn't have time to go find a game that you're going to give to somebody as a gag.
And I will, if he gets it, I'll actually put this as one of my podcast picks. So you can get 10% off to torment your friends who play board games.
TC, that's going on a long view. Well, no. No.
I'm struggling for what I would recommend for the good, the board, and the ugly. Here it is, guys. Right here. Look at those eyes. Ooh, scary.
Ranks up there with that game I heard about that was sent by some weird misogynistic male that was all about proving how tough of a guy you are, where cards would have you punching each other in the arms, and they came with bitter pills, was for some weird powdered candy in a medicine bottle that was not labeled with any ingredients.
Oh
yeah,
and
it was actually pretty sure it was illegal.
About this game was before the game even came out, I got a code from my friend and it was a Steam code. So I entered it in, and there's actually a director's cut of the video game on Steam I got because he backed this thing.
Wow.
I'm like, oh boy. I'm afraid to install this thing. It's gonna kill my computer.
I watched more reviews than the one that you linked, TC. I actually watched more reviews just to see if I actually wanted to pick it up. And I think ultimately what deterred me was that the video game is supposed to be 20 hours long. So it's it's a ton of content. But, like one of the reasons I love, movies, and everybody who loves Deadly Premonition loves it because it's just so good at being bad, which is like, if you've ever seen like the movie Troll 2, it's like, it's so watchable. It's strangely watchable. You just keep watching it because I don't know, it's entertaining, but it's not actually good.
Here's the thing about the video game is there was a point where you're just driving around town and you can actually run out of gas and have to hike like 30 minutes to get to where you need to go. But you're driving around and then the main character just starts talking to this imaginary character in his head about B horror movies and stuff. I actually spent more time driving around this dumb town listening to this guy talk to himself about horror movies than I ever did playing. It was actually that entertaining.
And he gets paid for like shaving, right? Every time you shave him, he gets money.
It is out there, and these type of things fill me with happiness and joy. I don't know why.
I'm really happy for that, TC. I'm glad that you're happy, even though it makes everybody around you sad. No, I'm just kidding. This is actually really funny, and I'd be very entertained to try this one as long as it's short.
It's relatively painless. It's something else. So there we go. Yeah. Deadly Premonition. Quote, the board game, unquote.
So are you going to be taking any design tips from that, Tony?
Maybe. Actually, you can get some interesting ideas and then do something different.
Put them in a terrible game. Yeah, I think that would be an awesome thing to do, like have a great idea and then just throw it onto this game that has no chance of actually entertaining people, though.
Just make it out of black and white cards, and you'll make millions.
Oh well, no, you'll make millions on people like Andy because he's going to want to print his own set and make the actual in color, on his laser printer and 3D printer and laminator, and it'll be mounted on chipboard, even though it's not necessary to mount it on chipboard. Andy once mounted the stocks to an 18XX game all on chipboard. The stock shares.
I'll give myself carpal tunnel after that too. It was bad.
Yep. So we still got a couple reviews here coming. Why don't we go with you here, Andy, talking all about your initial thoughts on a game that we played together. What did you think about Time of Crisis? TC.
Oh, I'm excited. Please go on.
Time of Crisis is a GMT game. Came out this year. It's making some pretty big waves through like the light war game community and such like that. I know it got a lot of play at the WBC this last year. It's kind of like a light war game with some deck building involved with it. So you can add up to your deck to, basically be able to make political actions, military actions, and so forth. There's some random events in it. It's basically historically takes place at a time in Rome when basically crap hit the fan on every level. And so there's just a lot of things happening, barbarians invading, horrible stuff happening, and that kind of thing. But very much the way to describe it is it's a very light war game wrapped up with some Euro deck building. The only difference is like you can pick which card you want. So the deck building to me feels a little more like it was in Tramways than say a Dominion, to where you cycle through your deck, but you get to kind of determine how you want to cycle through that deck. And that was very neat. It's a little asymmetrical in that you can become emperor. You can set up pretender empires. That's going to determine how many victory points you get. And like the first 1 to 40 in the short game or 60 in the long game is going to be the winner. I thought it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. Even the dice combat, that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me when it's in a combat setting. You could have a streak of just god-awful rolls on the dice, which could make you have a very bad day, but quit recruiting crappy legionnaires, I guess. I don't know. No, I honestly, I really enjoyed it. I think, though, for this game to shine, you would need to get a group of people that would play it several times together, because I think where this game's going to shine is once everyone has the rules down and you start playing the players versus playing the system, I think that's where this one would be a whole lot of fun. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on Time of Crisis. I want to get a few more plays of this one in because it's definitely an interesting system.
Oh, well, good. I was expecting something else. No, I got
it.
I mean, I'm okay with randomness.
It's the thing is, I'm okay with really how Andy described this. I think that for me, like, I do believe that once you get the system down, like, it's going to be good. But I think that it's going to take several games to get to that point. You mentioned that, TC, when you first talked about it. Like, you were playing rules wrong. It's like 6-7 games in.
Yeah, it was like, I think the 10th game before we go, I think we got everything right because it is a very, very procedural game. But I actually got a game of this in Wednesday in preparation for this. And, oh, man, it was such a fun beatdown. We were just in each other's faces the whole game. It was great. It was, oh, wow. There is,
yeah.
I agree, Andy. The more you play it, the more you get the rules, and the rules, you're just like, okay, I'm going to try these. What's crazy, you can, like, since the card, once you're buying your cards, it's small. There's like only 1, 2, 3, 9 cards, I think. Totally.
Right.
You can it makes it so you can like try different strategies with the game on the board.
Because they fuel actions, though, there's like limitless possibilities.
Yeah. So I'm like, I went like all blue this time, and I was just like, I would get into territory and I would take it politically just enough to score the points, and I'd get kicked out, but it didn't matter because the guy would come out and I just went in and took something else. And I had like, at one point, I had like 5 territories on the board, but the next turn I got all kicked out, and that's fine because then I went for Rome and I was pissing people off, and they were angry at me, and it felt good, and I ended up losing, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is with this game, like, I could, in our game, for example, Trent played and kind of ran away with it, but I could go back and look and see why he was able. I'm like, oh, when he did this, instead of doing what I did, I should have been doing this to kick his butt out of Rome. That's why he won.
Yeah.
Everybody else was getting smoked by the barbarians, and Trent was the only person that did not get hit by them. It was literally like, there was a 1 through 4 chance that Trent was going to get hit by barbarians that would have been a significant amount and deterred him from actually like holding on to Rome. But then the 5 or 6 came up, and that ended up going to his biggest opponent to go for Rome, the other guy who'd been building up the basilicas that help you take Rome. And so it was like, once again, we see that the randomness of the dice, basically favored the guy who was already the only competition.
I'm cutting you off. You got to know when to let territories go when the barbarians come. There was a time when I got hit by barbarians hard. I just let them have it. I spent 2 to get my governor out of that territory, and I went right in and I took another territory from someone who wasn't getting screwed up. And then I went through and I took Rome, and the 2 other people on the board did not like that, and they took out my territories that were exposed. Yeah, with the barbarians, you just got to know when to let go of stuff and go. It's very similar to Indonesia in that respect. You can't. It's like, you want to buy it for all this money? Fine, take it. I'll reap the rewards of all this stuff, and I'll turn
for
around.
Sure, any auction game, and it goes the same for like Iberian Rails. You can't be in loved and married to your company, your stock. I mean, otherwise it's you're going to end up overpaying and being in a difficult position, right, Tony?
Yeah, or sometimes you do. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes you want to.
The price is too high.
In the Time of Crisis we did, though, like with the barbarians invading, that was mainly hitting 2 other players. Like, I could have stopped Trent, but I was like, I want to go kill a bunch of barbarians. I'm going to try that to get my points. And so
then you realize that, oh God, Trent's like Rome, he's going to get 10 extra points after the game if I don't deal with it. And you're like, crap, it's like, I'm at 58 points of the 60 that's going to end it.
No, legitimately, I could look at exactly what 2 rounds and the decisions I made that let Trent have that game.
Yeah.
Like, and I even told Trent, I'm like, when you did this, I should have been buying level 3 blue cards and booting your little butt right out of there.
And that's the great thing, is that there's the game is very freeform. I mean, it's not telling you what you need to do. I mean, you're like, all you need to know is like, don't let someone hold room for more than 2 turns. That's key in that game. And you got to get like, dude, I got barbarians. Someone needs to deal with this, or I'm going to lose this. I'm going to take Rome. And then like, okay, well, I want to take it from you. It just, if you let someone sit on Rome, for more than 2 turns, it's bad news.
For sure. Well, thanks, Andy, for that review there, your initial thoughts on Time of Crisis. I'm going to go ahead now and give a review of one of the nominees for the Spiel des Jahres in this last year in 2017, and it's by Reiner Knizia, called The Quest for El Dorado. El Dorado I mean, honestly, this game has just kind of, I don't know, it never really made that big of a splash, I feel like, for being a Spiel des Jahres game. Though I think that's probably just because there's a bit of a delay between when it's big in Europe and when it becomes big here. Basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be building a map that's like a linear map where you're trying to go from the starting tile, go through several like multi-hex tiles. Like we're talking big chunky tiles with lots of spots on them, and usually several different sort of paths to take you that will differ based on like how difficult they are and also what type of movement you need to get through them, with your ultimate goal being to get to El Dorado. And it is a race game, so there's no points to count up. It is just whoever gets there first wins. Then if there is a tie, there's a way to break the tie, which has to do with like basically whoever was making the best progress earlier is going to have these barrier tiles to get removed for others. And that person then ultimately is going to be the winner of the game. So how are you actually moving is one of the simplest deck builders I've ever seen. You're going to start with 8 cards in your deck, and all these cards function in one of 2 ways. They're either something that helps you to move on the board or something that helps you to buy cards. And there are still some spots on the board that allow you, that require you to spend money. So I guess even the money that you use to buy cards is still used to move through the board. There's 2 types of movement on the board. You've got jungle movement and water movement, and you start with a deck that's much more catered towards jungle than water movement. And so you kind of make decisions as to how you're going to, on your turn, advance, because you block other people. Wherever you are at blocks other people. So if you find a choke point and sit there, other people are going to have to go around you. And then you also decide what cards you're going to buy to add to your deck. And the card selection in this game is actually static. It starts out with the same 18 cards, and there's only 6 that start available. But whenever the 6 that are available, whenever a stack is depleted, you're able to choose any of the remaining 12 cards. But there is no like randomness in the deck building in this game aside from the shuffle. There's no randomness in the availability of cards. It's all player driven. When you are building the map, though, the reason I said like you're going to build a map is because there's lots of ways you can build this map. You can actually make your own maps, and they include like I want to say 7 or 8 of varying difficulties. And the more difficult maps are going to have like choke points where you're forced to have a lot of a specific type of movement because you can't spend 3 different jungle cards that are machetes. You can't spend 3 jungle cards to move on 1 3 jungle space. You have to have all of the movement necessary to get to that tile from a single card. So you have to have the big cards, and so you're actually kind of deciding when you're building your deck which path you're going to be best suited for. Here's what I think is great about this game. Deck building is a concept that is not automatic. We all know that feeling of playing a deck builder for the first time, and unless you got coached heavily, you probably bought points and realized how pointless the points were at the beginning because you can't actually do anything with them until the end of the game. In the Quest for El Dorado, every type of card that you get, you can look at the board and see what's in your future and see what card you're going to need. You are choosing strategies based on where other people are at, how much money you actually have access to, which is fairly common in deck builders. You try to maximize how much money you get. Oh, you can also turn any 2 cards into $1, which is kind of nice. Cards also have a second use. All this stuff for a game that's nominated for Spiel des Jahres is super, super simple, right? And you can always see your progress too. Like in Dominion, how many points does everybody have? I don't really remember. How many provinces did you get? How many provinces did I get? I really love Dominion. Love Dominion. But it is a frustrating game to play when there's a skill discrepancy at the table. We all know what it feels like to be like, would you mind taking your turn? And that person is like frustrated, like, I'm just getting stomped and killed and I just want to go home. So I think that El Dorado is like the best starting point. This is where you get your kids started on deck building, right? This is, there's not the it doesn't do what Ascension does. Ascension takes like randomness and it's like, oh, these are the 6 cards you can buy, and these are the 6 cards you can fight. Everything is just based on these 6 cards that are out here and a few like static stacks that are out. But it's like it almost takes strategy away to make it easier. And it has complicated like 2 different currencies and everything. Everything in El Dorado is super intuitive, and it's not removing necessarily any complexity from the way that the game is actually being played. I mean, you could see an expansion come out that would really blow these cards out of the water and just like how many cards are available and stuff. The thing that is, all the cards are fairly simple as to what they do. I mean, you can look at a card that's like, this card costs me $1 and it gives me 3 machetes when it comes up. It's the same as the card that I've already got in my hand that gives me 1 machete. And that's how a lot of the cards are. There are like 6 or 7 different cards that are different fundamentally and actually have text written on them. But, for the most part, this is just going to be your perfect entry into deck building. I would teach this before I would teach somebody Dominion, just simply because Dominion is read these 10 cards, solve this puzzle, and then see how it plays out. El Dorado, you're not solving a gigantic puzzle at the very beginning. It's a lot more tactical, and you make decisions as the game goes on, and that just works great for a gateway learning game. Are you playing the Jeopardy theme song, Andy? Who is that? Is that you, TC? Am I hearing the Jeopardy theme song in the background?
Well,
is that
my
you,
kids
Tony?
are playing it. No.
Maybe it's just I'm hearing voices telling me it's time for me to stop talking. Have any of you guys played The Quest for El Dorado?
I see it on the rental ship at the game store, and I really want to bring it home to teach my kids. It looks very intriguing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm like, then I look at it, I go, oh, but they have Civilization, The New Dawn. I think I'm going to try this instead. But yeah, I keep looking at it and eyeballing it, and I see it getting played. And people have said some nice things about it. I've had a chance to play it, though.
No, I really want
being snarky.
to try that.
No, you're not being snarky. I was just waiting for Tony. What were you going to say, Tony?
I really want to try that game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some lag in the.
Sure. It could be, man. We're sitting like on the other side of the world from you right now, or as my flat Earth believing student would say, the other side of the disc. So it's a long ways to go. It's kind of amazing that we can even make what each other is saying out. So, yeah, if you wanted to try this, I really highly recommend that you do, because as a game designer, I think that you're going to feel a little bit of creativity potential here in just building your own track. Yeah. And the game gives you some recommendations that are kind of cool for that. Like it says specifically, don't make it so that one side of the board is super easy to get through, because then people are just going to go that and the whole other side is going to be ignored. Make it so that like anytime that you've got an easy spot, there's some sort of a give and take where it's like we're going to be stuck at this pinch where you need all this water movement, and you're not going to have it unless you've built your deck that way. Here's where I'm at with this, right? Like I played King Domino from the Spiel des Jahres, and I was like, this won the Spiel des Jahres. This game that feels like somebody just popped out a game out of thin air and was like, hey, we made this game, you want to try it? Sure. There's nothing special identifying about King Domino. It is nothing. And then we get a game like The Quest for El Dorado that not only does it mash together like a race game with deck building, but it does so in a way that is absolutely intuitive, easy to teach, and gives an entry level to a beautiful genre that's just ever expanding and very popular. And then we're going to give the Spiel des Jahres to the game that's about drafting 4 tiles, or drafting tiles equal to number of players, and then just getting to choose the order based on what you drafted last turn. That's it. Turn order the board game.
I guess Spiel des Jahres favorite family games.
Yeah. There was a lot of love going to King Domino on Twitter yesterday. From people that were normally in the heavy game community, which I kind of was all baffled about, but I haven't played it, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, I highly recommend it. I think that your family would like this one, Andy. I do think that you'd be able to get them to play this one, and it's not expensive either. There's a lot, in my opinion, expansion. With an expansion, this would be absolutely blown out of the park potentially. But what's cool about it is it's only like, I want to say $35 list price, and it's a full size game board with functional pieces. I think it got criticism for having Hobbit cards in a deck builder, but I mean, yes, it's not the best to shuffle, but like it was a very minor gripe in the video I watched, and to me, like I would pass that on, but say, yeah, I didn't really care. So anyhow, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Quest for Eldorado. And now this brings us to the end of our review section and the beginning of what I'm really looking forward to here, Tony. We know a bit of your story starting in 2nd grade, but we're missing the part where you became a board game designer. So where did you start playing board games? Or where, when, like how did you start in the hobby? And also, how did you get to the point where you wanted to start making your own games and releasing them?
I started playing when I was at Berkeley. I was going to school there, and like there was a local game group called the Berkeley Board Gamers. That's
cool.
I joined that group, and that's where I learned these games. I think like one of the first games I played was like T&E, Tigers and Euphrates in Puerto Rico. Yeah, and I got hooked, so I started playing.
Some good games to start with, man. Some real classics.
Yeah. And then like it was like a couple years later, I came back to Taiwan, and then like I was like I wanted to design my own games. Like I was really interested in designing games, so Iberian Rails was the first one where we developed like seriously.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's really interested me about your process, Tony, is that it isn't just that you're going to design a game and then you're going to try to pump it out and sell it to people. Like when you say that you really developed this game, like this game went through, your first game went through hundreds of playtesting sessions. I don't think that's really characteristic. I think that people kind of like designers in general, produce enough to just wash their hands at some point and just say, yeah, we're never going to get it perfect, but here you go. And I really feel like you went the extra mile with it. Now, where did Iberian Rails start in the design process? Like what were you playing a game when you had the idea? Was there other games that you were playing that sort of inspired you to design Iberian Rails? What would you say was the biggest inspiration?
Yeah, like I'll play a lot of games, and different games will inspire me, give me different ideas for different game ideas. Specifically for Iberian Rails, the inspirations were Chicago Express and Imperial.
Imperial, excellent. Wow, that is, and that's what I had a friend who really loved Imperial 2030, and I was like, dude, you really love Imperial. Like this does that type of thing with a train game. So that I absolutely see that. And then you sort of your own spin was setting it in Spain. Yeah. How did you decide to set it in Spain, and why?
Well, thematically, like I just came back from a trip to Spain.
Oh, of course.
So I liked it. And another thing was like gameplay wise. Again, I say I was inspired by Imperial, right? And like I like how this map in Spain was kind of like circular or squarish. And because I play Imperial a lot, and like I realized like what made Imperial the original, the one on Europe in the European map.
Yeah,
it had a lot of interaction because it was all kind of circular. Like the different countries will have this area in between them where they had to go grab it. So like the Spain map allowed me to do that in terms of
constrict and force people into competition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there any specific city on the Spain map? I noticed that Madrid is not a tourist city on the Spain map. Is this commentary?
it's yeah. We chose which were tourists or not. Even the city placement, like we chose them for gameplay reasons. It's not necessary for
Sure.
the thematic or the realistic geographical
Yeah. Well,
realism.
to compare to another train game that gets a lot of flack for this exact thing, Ticket to Ride has Minneapolis listed, like it has Duluth on the map. Like Duluth is a historical, like it's a historically based train like shipping game where it has to do with supply lines of different goods in the Americas, even though they tell you that you're supposed to be riding these trains because you're tourists, which makes no sense. Why would tourists ride a refrigerator cart? It makes no sense. Anyway, back to what I was saying, which is that it says Duluth, and anybody who lives in the northern Midwest or even knows just Minnesota knows that Duluth is like northeastern corner. It's on the Great Lakes, and they put Duluth right where Minneapolis is. But the reason behind this, designer-wise, is gameplay aspect, right? They wanted the gameplay to feature that being a shorter route and have more interaction with the bottom part of the map than having it feature, interacting with the OP Canada strategy. By the way, Canada OP, you're playing Ticket to Ride for the first time. Traverse Northern Canada. Yeah, that's right. I just said Canada OP, Norm. It's because of you. Anyway, Norm's up in Saskatoon. Well, he might still be in Philly, but he's in Saskatoon. I know he lives there. So the thing is, though, gameplay-wise, what you said makes perfect sense. So I get it. But when I looked at the map, I went on a recent, my wife and I went on a recent trip to Spain as well, which made this even cooler to be playing from that perspective. Every single city has, a defining architectural characteristic that just made each of these little nuggets, there's like so many pieces of artwork on the board itself. There's like 50 cities, and each one has defining architectural characteristics. I love that. And the cities were in the right places, generally. I mean, I didn't feel like, there was they're all kind of relative, right? It's a hex map, so it's not nearly as specific as like this dot on the map. But like it reminded me of walking through in Seville. They have this area that has, tells you, it has like kind of like little art decorated tiles and stuff from every state in Spain. And it really reminded me of when we walked through that. And it was so hot, my memories were able to be forming. But it was just cool, that they had this where they paid homage to all the different areas in Spain. And I think it was tied to like some Olympics that had happened there in like the early 1900s. So it reminded me of seeing all that stuff. It was really cool and worked for me and my trip. And I had that same passion, Tony. So it worked on that level. But it's the gameplay that keeps me coming back. And what you've not mentioned yet is the roles that you added to Iberian Rails. Okay, you took Chicago Express, and Imperial, like games where shared ownership propels the game systems to create unique and different situations, unique and novel situations. But that's not all. You're also going to be interacting with personalities like role selection. Where did the idea for that come from, and what was your goal in adding that to the system?
Actually, when I first started designing the game, the motivation wasn't actually, okay, I'm going to design a share game with roles. That actually came like later. At first, like we actually experimented with like special abilities that you bid on, kind of like Evo like. And so you like bid on this special ability cards that you will be like one-time use. But then like that didn't work out too well, because like it kind of took longer than it had to, because like the game already has a lot of options.
So you're bidding on the abilities, which just added more. Like, the bidding needs to be exactly. Yeah, there's only in the game like going to be like 20-ish auctions, right? Because that's how many shares there are. I totally see where you're going.
Yeah, the companies are already doing a lot of the auctioning, and then and then we were originally we had like at the beginning of each round it was an auction, just like EVO, right? So I feel like instead of doing that auction, we made it simpler where you were just gonna pick a character.
Sure. Well, and when you did that, though, it was very complicated, Tony. You actually gave yourself a huge task. You now needed to balance all of those things, because now you can't just say, oh, well, this will be situationally useful in every round. Now you've got to say, like, no, like, we don't want anybody going into this game and thinking that oh, you got that roll, OP, that's the only thing that matters now.
Yeah, we did. I wanted to make sure it was like the roles were not too complicated, useful in like a natural and organic way, and balanced. So we did. I knew going in we were gonna playtest like the heck out of it. Before we introduced the roles, like the basic options for the actions were the open auction, the closed auction, and if you want to build tracks, it was 10, 20, 40, 60, 90. That was like the standard building cost. So when we designed the roles, we kind of went off from that. Like the mafioso would have that. The mafioso, the hotelier, and the inspector would have that building cost.
Mm-hmm.
And the engineer, like his building cost would be modified based off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, like the hotelier and the inspector still have the basic building cost, 10, 20, 40, 60, and 90.
Yeah.
But the mafia actually has 10, 20, 40, 60, 80.
Huh.
We changed that like kind of like 100 or 200 games in, because what we realized was that a lot of the times you want to take the mafioso defensively.
Uh-huh.
It's like mid game, late game. Like I really need to I need like a big building turn to push my company into like 10, 12 cities, like 9, 10, 12 cities. So, but then like I can only do that if like this other player doesn't take the mafia.
Exactly. Yeah. I've seen it taken defensively, and I've seen that player who took it defensively win the game. Whereas had I been able to take it, once you get into that once you get to those huge payouts, when cities, for people that aren't familiar, we've kind of jumped in. I have reviewed it. Check out my video. The too long didn't read for any of that stuff, or just to be able to participate here. It's a game where it's kind of like a Chicago Express share game where people the players control train companies that are auction shares, and then they're going to use money in those companies to build 2 other out of their starting city and into other cities, with the hope of getting to a certain point where they hit 12 cities on the track, and that's like the biggest payout. And the payouts get exponentially bigger as you get to that bottom part of the track. They start to snowball big time. And then the game will end whenever somebody maxes out the track, or whenever so many of the train companies are actually out of stock. So, that's the way the game plays. Now, the roles that we've been talking about a little bit that you've mentioned, like building costs in this game are not tied to the specific map per se, like they are in a traditional Cube Rails game, like Chicago Express. Instead, you're attaching those to the role. And like you said, you had like a specific sort of template for like, this is the average building cost, 10, 20, 40, 60, 90. And then the thing is, though, once you add these special abilities, which in the case of the mafioso actually lets you take control of a company, but you have to have stock, now you start creating these interactions in the later game where, like, for example, Andy knows what it feels like to get mafiosoed, right, Andy?
Yeah, but it was all right. I did it to you the round after that.
He did, and he actually hurt me really bad doing that. Yeah. I was ready to snowball up, and then yeah.
So that's why the fifth construction, like with the Mafia, we changed from 90 to 80, so that when you do take it defensively, like you can build like a little bit easier.
Yeah, it has that defensive bonus,
for that.
so to say,
Yeah.
like a little defensive bonus. But I hadn't even considered that, honestly, like that's a really subtle change. But it's interesting to hear that small of a change went, 100 to 200 games into this, had that purposeful reasoning behind it, and that was something, honestly, Tony, I didn't even realize that. Like, I feel like I'm such an opportunistic player that cannot even think that far ahead. I think the only time I've ever ended up with a company that hit 12 was because I shystered my way into the company because somebody else had great plans and
Right.
I screwed them over in some way. So that's why
you mentioned,
you should.
You mentioned a couple of good points, like the being opportunistic, and then the table grows exponentially. Like we designed that on purpose. We wanted to have like a lot of opportunities to be opportunistic and sabotage, and the building up your company to be a realistic way to win the game too. So like we play tested a lot of the play test and balance went into adjustment, right? Like we figured out like to make sure like the game, like building up your company is like a viable strategy, like
is rewarded.
Like,
yeah,
the payout table has to grow a lot really fast in the 10 to 12 city range. That's how we got the growth rate down on the payout table.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to be able to balance with players like just stabbing and undercutting each other, but also like let that player that has taken actions, has defensively taken the mafioso, they're still going to be able, their strategy, if they're able to execute it, is viable. That makes sense.
Yeah, like if you somehow you can fend off all the undercutting all the like all the mafia, all the hotelier thing. If you do build something up, then it pays out.
Absolutely, yeah. That makes perfect sense. You've got so many different sort of angles and directions you can take, but what you've got, like you said when you designed the map, you liked the way the Spain map gave you an area and a way to constrict players and force them into competition. I would say that the same goes for the way that you compete over the roles, which can do anything from allow you to lay out some infrastructure that you can hopefully pay out big on later in the game, like in the case of the hotelier, or allow you to interact and actually take over other players' company for a turn, but of course by paying them under the table. So you've got thematic integration with those roles. So I mean, like, anybody who's ever looked at a train game and thought like, snooze, this game is just brimming with choices that feel like whatever you're going for. Like you've got a ghost player, you can take the ghost role, and the ghost is like an image of a floating lady, and that lets you build as if nobody else knew you were there. You can build on tiles without having to pay other companies like you normally would have to pay any company in your tile when you go there. So like that's just simple stuff. But then you added, it's like the game just started to sort of grow when you look at the different roles. And I feel like what you said very much earlier, Tony, was about one specific role, or when you said that players would auction one-time abilities, and you still have one single one-time ability in the game, which I think, TC, I don't know if I've sold you yet on this one, but I feel like just this ability alone, like you are able to take a role called Don Quixote, and then you don't even play that round out at all. Like instead of you doing the role selection and then doing the company's option, no, there's no operating round. You just go right back to role selection because somebody took Don Quixote, and not only that, you get to nuke a spot on the board. It is like it just turns the game entirely on its side in the round when that happens. And
that's a really expert role. Like I would suggest like playing it until you play like 20, 50 games of it.
Yeah.
Because
we found that out the hard way. That was the game. I believe that was the game that I tweeted to you about, and you told me that this has never happened before. We had a winning score where no train company made it further than 7, and the only player that made it down to 7 on the cities track had spent all of his money getting there. And so his ultimate like end game cash was like $150. And then everybody else, like the winning score was just over $200, which I'm pretty sure you said was a record.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being able to suck the most of anyone ever, or at least my table decided that we were just going to cut each other off and cut at the knees, and it was just constantly taking everybody else out to the point where it was like, hold on, I can end the game, and I'm pretty sure that I only have $200, but that's going to be the most. And I'll be like the king of all this garbage. I'll be like this lord of
I think
the.
It was because of the mafioso, right? Like the mafioso was probably earlier in the character row in that game.
Yeah. It was
because like where the mafia is in the character row, like if it's in the front, then it's like okay, there might be more sabotage going on in this game. But if it's like in the last position or the last 2, then you can kind of like it's kind of a little bit safer in that regard.
Yeah, one other thing that's interesting is that not just their position in the actual drafting line, but also their position in relation to what they are directly before or after. Because like I find that there's certain roles that people really want to get, but then it's like you almost have like a spot that's an on deck role to a role they actually want.
Yeah,
because you can't take.
Yes. That's like the main point of the character role mechanism.
Of actually like shuffling them up and having them in a random order. You can play the same game. I've played the base game now like 9 times or so with the full gamut of all the things included. And I want to say that none of those games has felt remotely the same because, like you'll have games where the hotelier is at the very back. And like you said, when something is at the back, it's only getting taken every other round. It's hardly happens at all. But if there's at least one thing ahead of it, it changes quite a bit.
Yeah, like you said, the order matters. Like you can look at the row and then you can see specific combos sometimes. Like if the bureaucrat is right after the engineer, you can bureaucrat and then lead right to the engineer.
Mm-hmm. Very, very cool. And this is something like Andy, like a lot of the games that you play that are like economic games, like this is not usually heard of in like a Cube Rails game. Like the other Cube Rails game, like you mentioned Chicago Express, I've played that game over 100 times. And that is, that's going to start up static. Every single game starts exactly the same and everything happens on a very predictable thing. So, I mean, this is bold, but then that's also why you play tested it hundreds of times. So, and I would say that, I believe from my perspective, it was successful, but that's pretty bold, man. That to me is like, that's taking something like taking a chorus from the master, from the master of rock and roll, and then writing your own verses. That's pretty ballsy there, Tony.
Yeah, thank you. To be honest, like I saw when I first tested, I was like, okay, after 100 games, the game should be done. But then, like once we were into the 100 or 150 range, like we still had some ideas that we wanted to test, so we just kept going until we feel like we got everything down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then okay, explain to me though, how Dali, like, what?
Yeah, that he's a really wacky character.
Which, I mean, he's the surrealist painter, but just for frame of reference here, everybody, like, normally you're so focused on the city chart. But then with Dali,
Mhm.
you can end up because if you have a scoring happen, which is tied to like shares being auctioned, he actually is not going to give you any money for any cities. Instead, he gives you double city scoring for all of the non-city tiles you're built on. So if you have this train train companies had to build into the grass to get somewhere, all of a sudden they're like making bank. It's crazy how big the payouts can get.
Yeah, like it can be really strong if on turn 1. Okay, before the game begins, you put like 30-40 into a company, and on turn 1 you do the engineer, and you build them all into empty hexes. And then on turn 2 you do like a Dali, whether open or closed. And then and then you get like a really huge early game cash infusion. You might win the game just right off of that. So the other player will have to kind of stop you. I actually wrote a section report on BGG. You can go check it out. That one had the Dali in it.
Really? So because of the way that the early game companies tend to need to build out onto the grass, you can end up with this situation where you've got a train company that should suck, but with Dali is actually turned into like, mega powerful, payout. So, and can actually sort of just swing the game up. But like you said, it's a fringe character. And I've seen that happen more in the late game. So none of us actually thought to take advantage of that in the early game when we were playing. But just every single one of these characters, you've got 19 included if you got the extra Kickstarter pack, which you can pick up on BGG store right now. Every single one of them, I feel like, has its own story behind it. Were there any that didn't make the cut?
Oh, yeah, but like the ones that didn't make the cut, like I don't remember too well. I think there's like a robber or thief, where it's like when you picked it, like you like take money from one company and put it into another company or yourself. That didn't make the cut, so like I don't even know like how that would have turned out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it sounds similar to the Mafioso, and Andy already griped enough about that one. So
yeah, a lot of people like have like difficulty with that. What I would say is like when you play Chicago Express, every turn everyone has his Mafioso.
Exactly. Oh, it's so frustrating. Like that's what to me really changed about Cube Rails and Iberian Rails is that you took the idea that to make choices with a company, you must own it, which seems like in Cube Rails is kind of lost, like anybody can just build you into the grass and it's like,
yeah, there's pros and cons. There's pros and cons. I kind of went more towards the Imperial school of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is worth pointing out, though, in the Cube Rails, not all of them do that, like Chicago Express. I think I have Kansas and Pacific, and only the president can actually operate that one, too. So,
Sure. Yeah. In the obscure ones, Andy, I'm sure all kinds of things happen.
I like the ones that come in like plastic blister packs and made out of construction paper.
I knew it. Yeah, that came with like packaged in a magazine.
You know what I want to do is I want to buy one of those and then like upgrade the components to chipboard, but still use like the piece of construction paper glued onto it.
Andy, you would make every single piece, of this game. You would be making it. I would expect really high production value from you, dude. It would be 3D printed. It would have like it would be like Container Deluxe Edition.
Stock tiles instead of certificates.
Yeah, like every copy is like a convention copy. Yep. Yep. You have like frames, actual framed stock certificates for every single one in its own frame. The game weighs, the game just takes up your entire car. It's the only thing you can actually carry with you. Yeah, that's an Andy game. So, Tony, I'm glad to be able to pick your brain about this because, like, there's a lot. You've done a great job of putting information out there, and I've watched quite a bit of it. But man, you've been very transparent in your design process, and letting people, like, offering them a window. So whenever I hear somebody, or I read a comment, like I kind of went down and read the comments on Iberian Rails to see what people are saying. Each one of those, I felt kind of like, it's not really my job, but I feel like I should tell this person that they are wrong. And they need to go read this because, like, when you've played it enough, that doesn't happen. So, but fortunately in my group, we didn't end up with anybody really like seeing, feeling like too hurt by things. I think, like most of the people that felt like
it's
it
a
wasn't
brutal
their
game. It's a brutal game. Like as a gamer, I'm really aggressive. I'm not like a really aggressive player, so like I design my game where you can be creatively aggressive.
Yes.
So it's
yes.
so it can get really hard.
Mm-hmm. You can never just poke somebody in the eye. That would be silly, ridiculous. But it's all about tricks and things that you see where somebody's going and sort of cut them off and make sure that their grand plan is either going to be your grand plan or it ain't happening. So
yeah.
Very, very cool there. And I like the way that you have like you've designed not only the side that plays well, like Iberian Rails has a map of Iberia, but then during the Kickstarter campaign, we were able to add this map so I can tell my friends that I'm playing Iberian Rails in Taiwan.
Yeah, like we want to be like environmentally friendly with that. It's like the board, right? It's a board, so we might as well make it double-sided.
Yeah. Oh, that is perfect. But it's just ironic that Iberian Rails outside of the Iberian Peninsula.
Well,
yeah,
it was
that was kind of funny.
In an 18XX, you could have an expansion for 1861 where you just got a map of Canada, but you were still using Russian companies in Canada.
They're still called the Russian companies. So.
That's the same in Iberian too. Like you're using like Spanish, although it's not really Spanish companies, but like Spanish themed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they all make sense. They're all like Gaudi Rail. I really like that touch. Ruel, however you pronounce it. But
no, it's good. Like it's better than Continental Divide when you're getting what railway am I starting?
The
purple one.
Oh, they
I'm
call
starting
them
purple.
It is literally called Purple. The Purple Company. So, hey, TC.
Yes, sir.
Have you been intrigued by any of the aggressive and brutal description of this game? Is this something, as somebody who gave a positive review that really surprised me of 1846 during our episode with your daughter?
Well, it surprised you?
Do you think?
Well,
it surprised me that you liked 1846. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the one thing that I've heard a lot of hype about this game when I play, but what really is drawing me to this game in particular is the art. The art in this game really looks nice, and it makes me want to play it. And the more I hear about the gameplay, the more I want to play it. And you've been hyping this thing for months.
It's me that's hyping it, TC. I don't want you to think that it's being hyped by everybody. I mean, you go on to Board Game Geek, you go on and look at like the people are saying in the comments. It's me that's hyping it, and it's because I like everything that is, whatever it is, like fate has just put me in this position where, for whatever reason, I am looking for this type of game. Like this was exactly the product, and I don't even know if I knew that I needed it, but that's me. That's me subjectively and personally, right? I mean, it's set in a place that I'm very passionate about, like Spain. I just went on vacation there, Tony. It's like we had a very similar, just it's just the same moment, and so this came at that time. But then also, you're drawing on two different games. You're drawing on Cube Rails, which are ones that I enjoy, but it's more like, I don't get excited about. And then you're talking about Imperial, which I love, but it's so long. It's such a long game, and it feels very samey. And and Iberian Rails, not every game is like this, but it plays in what feels like an absolute blink of an eye. Like, you can you can get a game of this done in like 45 minutes to an hour when you're advanced players, especially you're playing with less, on the Taiwan side of the map. And so it does all these things. And then you also add the variety of the roles, but they work in weird ways. Like even, for example, Phileas Fogg is one that we haven't talked about. Phileas Fogg simply changes the set order of companies so that all of your companies go first. And I remember reading that role and I thought like, I'll try one of the ones I'm more interested in, one of the wackier ones. And we finally tried Phileas Fogg, and it was like, no, Phileas Fogg is just as wacky as everything else because he makes all of your companies go first, which can allow you to cut people off. Yeah, that's nice. Hey, $10 or whatever. But what it really can do is it can allow you to auction off one of your own companies first. And if you're cash poor, now all of a sudden you're getting paid off. You're getting a payout, and you actually are sitting on money now from your actual auctions happening. And that to me, like that dual wielded weapon, and from a role that's not even like, the recommended set to start with, you're talking about one of the extra roles to add in. Like every little bit of this, from the order that the tiles are in to the extra tiles you add, is something that makes me continue to want to play it. And it's not just me, it's like a bug around my local group. And that's something, Tony, that, I had no idea who you were because this is your first game, but holy crap, man, you've done something that didn't, it isn't something that I'm used to having happen with the game. Kind of like with UTC and Time of Crisis, right? That one came out and
that one kind of nowhere, but
that took you by storm.
What's got me intrigued by Iberian Rails was just the cover of the box alone that shows a train flying off the rails. And it was like a bunch of characters on the side, I don't know, like on pump carts or dismantling the rails or something. And someone brought it to one of the game nights, I believe. And I was looking at the box going, holy cow, this could actually potentially be one of my style of train games. But like everybody had like, oh, we're full. We don't have enough room for one more. I'm like, And I thought it was like a confluence. I could talk about it with the designer, and it just, it didn't like. But I did actually hold the game, and it's a beautiful production. That cover alone sells the game. I love it.
I think that really you're captivating. You're telling people like, here's a train game, but it's not like all other train games. And so I do think though that's another bold move, a bold, aggressive move, Tony, which you seem to enjoy making.
Yeah. By the way, like. You mentioned about the Phileas Fogg. Like when I designed the game, like before the rules were even in there, one of the things I wanted to incorporate into the strategy part is like the timing. I want the players when they play the game to be faced with a decision on how to manage their company. When they manage their company, do they want to spend all the money in the company treasury to build up all the tracks and then pay out, or pay out to trigger the payout prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do the payout prematurely, what that does is it gives you cash in hand for you, which gives you investment opportunities into maybe other companies. But then what that does is like it compromises the long-term growth of that company because in Iberian Rails, like the companies also gets paid out, so that's like one of the mechanisms I want to explore. Like since like the company also pays out, so if you trigger the payout earlier, like you're cutting the amount of the company gets paid out, and since like there's like a limited number of shares. For the company, that's like if it only gets paid X number of times, and then if it's first time or the second time it's not getting paid as much as it could have, then you kind of like limit its long-term growth. So that was like kind of the central ideas that I had when I first designed the game. That was the central idea that I wanted to play with. And plus, so there was the timing aspect of deciding when to pay out, and then like I wanted to have the payout be kind of like modern art. Like I was actually
modern art. Oh my goodness, you were inspired by modern art as well, and that's what I tell people. Like this reminds me of modern art and modern art is
The
another one.
closed
of my
auction, right? The closed auction, right? Because of the ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Like in modern art, you're like, okay, I have a bunch of like Yokos, right? So I want to build Yoko up. So in here, like you can build your company up. Not only are you building your share value up, you also build your leverage as the CEO.
Yes.
Right? Like, okay, I build it up, and then I can do this closed auction.
Closed auction, which pays which will pay
and
you.
And people are gonna pay me.
Mm-hmm. But
so
all of this,
that powers modern art. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, Tony, you got started with the classics, right? Like you've already brought up Tigris and Euphrates, Puerto Rico, modern art. I mean, you're talking about classic games here, and I see that sort of knowledge of like good, solid mechanisms that have been well explored at various times. Like 20 years ago or whatever it was, 15 years ago, like auctions were like the current sort of worker placement now, where there's an auction in every game and every game's an auction game. But like you had some really great ones emerge from that. And I see like, these great games that emerged from, that kind of rose to the top from the fads that were going by. And I see you taking the best pieces of them and then making it into its own unique product. And I would say that like we've talked about so many different roles, and every single role we talk about here, Tony, seems to be something you got a session report written about, you've got a designer diary written about. And what I got to thinking was all these different roles in the game didn't just come from like, oh, I want to have tons of roles. It's like you came up with all these different things you wanted the game to do, and you were like, okay, and now let's make a whole bunch of things that break that, that make that one thing something that gets played with in the role selection. And seems like that's why it's so intentional. That's why it's not just an aggressive, brutal, mean game where you're just taking things from other players. It's like the Mafioso is something you should be able to see coming, and like you said, play defensively. There's more to this than just I took what you built up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not to derail. My daughter is no. I've been waiting for a chance to ask this because we got the design. My daughter is very much looking forward to Warriors of Yongu.
Jogu, right?
Jogu, whatever.
Jogu,
is there any type of release date on that? Because she saw it played somewhere online or something with one of her friends, and she's been asking me about it like incessantly.
Yeah,
so I was told to ask that for her.
the Kickstarter goes live on the January 16th, next Tuesday.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up, TC. It's actually it makes sense for us to, we've talked a lot about Iberian Rails, and TC has now derailed us. That's what I was saying, TC.
It's one thing Kate wanted me to ask. Saw the artwork and saw it played, and she's like, Dad, ask. I'm like, okay, give me a minute, honey.
It's great that you brought that up, TC. I was just giving you crap for using the phrase derailed. So anyhow, we're now going to talk about Warriors of Jogu, which is your upcoming game, right?
Yes. It's our second game.
All right.
Second game by Monsoon Publishing. Yes.
Sweet. So Warriors of Jogu pits you two players against each other, kind of like TC, your favorite game of all time now. Love Fest L5R, Legend of the Five Rings.
Love Fest 5R.
So what you can do here, though, is you can play these decks against each other. You don't actually have to do any pre-constructing.
Yeah, that's what got Kate really interested in it, because she likes L5R, but she doesn't like building the decks. And honestly, I don't know how she heard about this thing. It's this weird thing where you say we're interviewing the guy. I'm like, I think this is a guy that, oh, cool, awesome. So, Tony, I don't know. It's like making the rounds in my daughter's circle of friends somehow. I don't know how this is the case, but yeah. But yeah, the fact that the decks are pre-constructed and you play as they are, I think is something that's really going to, and it looks like it plays like in 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And it's one that TC, I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, that's a pretty box.
It is. Yes, it
Oh,
is. Very beautiful artwork.
Are you showing off the fact that you have it and I don't? I hate you.
Well, it is one that I did a how
At
to
least
play
you didn't
video.
call your daughter on to show her.
Yeah. Hey, Kate, come over here.
So what I would say about Warriors of Jogu is that I was able to teach it to my wife in like 2 to 3 minutes. I mean, the same way as Iberian Rails, like you're right. You're not making these games that have like huge rule books and stuff. This is like back to what I would call like, the golden days of like, the Euro rule books. Like Euro's supposed to have a clean, easy to read rule book. It's not supposed to get like 30 to 40 pages and ridiculous stuff. Like here, there's, your actions are simple, turns are quick. You're really what starts to happen in this game is you start to get to that point where your knowledge of what your opponent has at his or her disposal is going to cause you to think like, all right, well, I think they would do this, but they know that I would think that, so maybe they're not doing that. And there's that sort of bluffing aspect to the game where you're really starting to get in each other's heads. You got asymmetry with the different decks. And it's I don't get to play two-player games too often, and when I do, they're ones that I have to be able to convince my wife to play. And she was really, just the simplicity was something she was able to easily get into, and it's something that we're hammering out game after game. I think we've got like a half dozen games already, and we're still exploring all the different factions and matchups because they definitely have, I would say, they have like a next level of when you're knowledgeable, but that next level is not as like difficult to get to as it can be in, like, for example, TC. You basically have to study all the cards, know all the cards that are potentials in like every faction, and then you have to like know your own faction absolutely back and front. Like you've got to. It's a really a daunting task to take on, and this is something for more of like, if you want to be able to teach this to casual people. And I think Kate would really enjoy that, even though I know she's caught the bug too, right? She's building her own decks, TC, for L5R?
No. I have to build everyone's deck before yeah.
That's the place to be in.
That's probably why Battle for Rokugan is getting a lot more plays right now. Just because she can but Kate's an interesting gamer for a 14-year-old. It has to be fast, has to be quick, and you have to be able to punch someone in the face repeatedly. I know that's my daughter. It's weird.
No, she's just like her dad. It doesn't make any. No, it doesn't surprise me at all. It actually is quite endearing. TC, it is hilarious. So there's a question in our chat, and I realized I didn't really talk about, but I mean, like it was asked, is this like a Magic style game? And my response to this is no, not really. It feels more like you're sort of like two-player. It's like somewhere between a two-player head-to-head card game, like say like Lost Cities or Babel, or like a game like that. Except you do have specific factions, but they're pre-constructed, and you just shuffle. So I mean, it's it's somewhere in that realm. You're going to be like battling, but adding up points. So it really
it's probably it's probably more like a numbers game, like Blue Moon and Lost Cities in that sense, but it has a lot more, obviously a lot more steam and special faction abilities than Lost Cities, and also with bluffing and deduction.
Yeah,
I was inspired by Liar's Dice actually for the game.
Liar's Dice, interesting as one of those. Yeah, no kidding. Well, Merv just mentioned and brought up Smash Up, and what I would say is, Smash Up is basically, every single card is like, read this kind of wall of text and then do whatever it says. And in here, it's like the cards generally have more copies of them, which might at first blush make people say, oh, so there's less different unique cards, but really, like, when there's more than 5 or 6 unique cards in a deck, you start to sort of lose track, and you don't anticipate them to have that card, or you start banking on them not having it. Whereas like every decision I make in Warriors of Jogu, I'm counting on my wife having this card, and my plan sort of like has to do with her falling into traps that I've laid for her, depending on what deck I'm playing.
Yeah, like the cards they're not like unique. They're more like unit types.
Yeah.
Like chess pieces. You can have like multiple copies of everything. And about like games where every card is unique, I think Blue Moon does a really good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Smash Up does a very good job, as good of a job with.
Yeah, well, I think it largely Smash Up is just kind of like you draw the card and play the card, and just the way that you've got a lot of different things that feel out of your control in Smash Up, whereas here in Warriors of Jogu, like you're able to basically choose every single round to discard your entire hand and then draw back up to your hand limit. But if you go through your deck, that's it. So
yeah, the thing with Blue Moon, and I would like to say Warriors of Jogu, is like when we designed the game, like the core mechanism of the game, like we have an idea of how the game is going to play, and so I designed the faction abilities to fit around that organically. I think Rhino Knisa did that with Blue Moon as well.
Yes. Well,
so when you play it, when you play it, the abilities feels like it makes sense. It's natural. The thing with like Smash Up, like the ability, it felt like the core game, like they didn't. There wasn't like something like a core idea that they wanted to flesh out, and then so when they designed the abilities, like it didn't really have like a matching part back to the game. So it kind of feels like there's a game and then there's the ability, and the abilities feel kind of detached. So it feels it feels a little bit more tedious to execute all those abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does feel tedious, and just like looking through all your cards becomes like like every single card is like this does this does this, and I feel like in Smash Up it's more about just having a card that does something kind of silly and fun based on what it is, and I think that's where people come from. That people that enjoy Smash Up are kind of wanting to be able to enjoy on a thematic level what it does.
Yeah, it's
and I feel like
game.
Yeah, I feel like what you got with Warriors of Jogu is not it's not just for that crowd. I don't feel like there's many heavy strategic gamers that are going to go to Smash Up very much. It's definitely not one that gains much traction outside of outside of playing with new people. But I do feel like Warriors of Jogu is one of those where you and a partner could really kind of like you mentioned Lost Cities. My wife and I played Lost Cities. We would play that almost every night for several like months, and we got just dozens of plays of that in. And this is the type of game that Warriors of Jogu. It's so easy to take out, set up. There's nothing, and you get choices as to what deck you play, kind of like in Blue Moon. But the fact that the units, like you can generally count on what you're going to be getting. I never really feel like I look at my hand and I'm like, I had a terrible draw. I do sometimes look at my hand, look at what my wife has already done with the round, and think, I'm screwed. Like there is like any more effort I put into this is just going to be awful. So like knowing when to count your losses is kind of that's an important strategy in Blue Moon, because you're not going to win every single battle, but you need to choose when enough is enough.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing when to retreat is actually very important. I was kind of like inspired by like Sun Tzu's Art of War. This like the Art of War was actually in the back of my mind when I was designing this game. To know when to cut your losses.
Yeah, and that's a really cool like deck management aspect, and I think that got really well explored in Blue Moon. And Warriors of Jogu shares things in common with a lot of what we talked about, but it really does maintain a simplicity about it that makes it, in my opinion, maybe even more accessible than pretty much anything we've talked about. I can't imagine there being all too much, inaccessible about the game. So it's a cool design piece here, and I was a little bit bummed when you told me that the Kickstarter was going to have some stretch goals and whatnot, but they were going to be small and they weren't going to be extra factions. I was like, oh, come on, give me my factions. Like, give me more factions.
Yeah, those need more play testing, and like the artwork will have to take some time. We'll need some time to play test and do the finish the artwork.
Sure, yeah, and I understand that. I'm still excited to see it when it comes out, and I'm glad that we had John here now that I got a few games of it in, and I appreciate TC and Andy for you guys being here and listening in. I mean, the thing about it is that you were inspired here by classics, Tony. This is not, new age, hey, let's look at the silly new things that are out and let's try to make something like that, This is like, this is what keeps people at the game table. This isn't just the game that draws you in. It's the game that keeps you sitting there and puzzling over what you're supposed to do without it being a rough game. Like Andy, what was your most recent acquisition, Andy? It was a small 2-player card game from Reiner Knizia, right?
Yeah, I picked up Battle Line and
Ooh,
Well, I like that game.
I like
Yeah.
Battle Line quite a bit.
I picked up that.
I
and
like
then-
Stockton Thompson better.
Yeah, Fox in the Woods, I think it was, to see if I could play it with my wife. That new one. Apparently, it's supposed to be like a really good 2-player trick-taking game, and there aren't many of those. So,
Mhm.
yes,
yeah,
I play night games too.
But Andy just doesn't want anybody to know. It's like Andy's like this sort of closeted light gamer where he's not comfortable talking about it with anybody. He's got this like
I just
macho
play those with
bravado.
my wife and kids.
That's right.
When I go
Yep.
to midnight, it's trains. What?
hmm And I epically, this is a big moment for Andy and for just board games in general. I got Andy to play his first ever game of Dominion on Sunday.
I finally did come up with my new excuse for not playing games, though. So I can't say I'll play it after I get to Dominion. Now it's okay. I'll get around to it after I play a game of High Frontier with all the modules included.
I like where Andy's
Wow.
going. With this,
Okay.
actually.
Well,
I-
I'll see you next year.
Oh
my God,
goodness.
that board for High Frontier is just the most out of control thing I've seen in a while. It looks awesome.
There's so many people I've just showed a picture of the board and then their eyes get big, like their pupils contract, and they're just like, no, I am no. Oh, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Dominion, it was all right. I'm not usually a big card game person, but it was enjoyable.
Mhm. Well, and I specially designed it based on Andy's request to have the ability to get cards right on top of his deck. And I think that's really cool that with the events expansion, you can almost find events and landmarks that'll change the game in any direction you're heading towards. So we were able to find the Traveling Fair card, which allows you to pay $2 to put a card right on top of your deck. So that way, with Andy saying, I don't like games that, force me to buy a card and put it in my discard. Now, if you pay $2, you can get that card right on your deck, Andy. Thank you. Play the game.
And I did like the events thing. If it was just play your hand, buy more cards, play more, and that, I don't think I would have liked it as much personally. But
That's the beauty of Dominion. It's like so simple to teach, but if you get into it, there's depth. There's like, teach me the game. It's like you do this, you do these 3 things, and you're off. Then you just screw yourself over somehow. Then, like you say, I'll buy these green cards. Uh-oh.
I think it gets better the more you play it. Like Dominion. Like the first 10 games, I was like, it was really boring. But then like after like 50 games, I started to appreciate it more. I think, and I like it with 2 players. With 2 players and with some of the newer, I mean, not just the base decks, like you can get into like an interesting situation where it's like the timing actually matters.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just trying to raise a province, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do something really weird and funky where I can get like 10, 20 VPs with the goons that are outside the deck. And I'll let the other guy rush the province. He thinks he's winning, but by the time he's got to his like fifth or sixth province, I have 0 province, but then he cannot finish the game off.
Yeah, exactly. You get so clogged up with provinces that you can't buy them anymore.
And yeah, Andy, I would recommend. I really like the Dark Ages expansion where you can just
Me too. That's my favorite.
You just trash that trash pile just becomes insane in that with that. It's just it's like
huge.
Holy cow, that thing, the rats, that expansion.
Yes, the rats are so cool. Yeah, I'm so glad that we could share that together, TC, because of the base sets, and when I say base sets, I mean up until guilds, which I think was like the 8th expansion, 9th box for Dominion. I call that like, the base ones, because all of those were really great, but I don't think any of them started to push really, outside brand new things like these new 3 expansions had. Like really actually be expansions and not just sort of, more cards to add to the game. Though I really do love Dark Ages. Like, to me, that's my favorite.
No, yeah, I'll just play Dark Ages by itself. I'll just buy like the coin, get the coins and the provinces, and like we're just playing Dark Ages. Because that game can get brutal and mean and nuts.
If you like, from what you mentioned, Tony, have you had a chance yet to play the Empires expansion, the second? No,
I haven't played. I stopped playing relatively early, I think. I think Hinterland Dark Age was when I stopped.
Okay.
I haven't played the latest.
I would implore you to try them back, because I would say that Adventures and Empires, especially Empires, if you liked the sort of alternate victory point cards, absolutely phenomenal, well-designed, and really cool to explore that aspect. You've also got some card decks where, like, the top half of them will be a different card than what's underneath. So, like, you buy 5, like, there's 10 cards. The top half is catapults. The bottom half is rocks. And guess what rocks are really good as? Being thrown by a catapult. So, it just crazy designs that you wouldn't imagine, like, it's really cool, and I highly recommend. Dominion is one that, even though I play all these newer games as they're coming out, that's one I have all the time, dude. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're at. Are we hyping games right now?
Let's go to hype. Let's go to hype.
Yeah, I feel like I've already hyped. So I'm actually like, I'm cool with just saying like I think I hyped Warriors of Jogu. Okay, that's what I hyped. Okay, let's talk about your hype, Andy.
I got actually 2 hypes, and I'm going to do them real quick because they're older games. I just got my shipping order notice from Funnigan that Antiquity is on its way. So it's the last of the big Splotter games that I don't yet own. So I'm really excited to get that in my hands and play it. Plus, any game that's described as the game hates you immediately has my interest.
I'm jealous. I wish I could own all the Splotter games. And that's my mission. Eventually, I want to own all the Splotter games.
They're fun.
My first one that's permanently staying in my collection I've got right here. Great Zimbabwe. Love it.
And anyway, the next one is the Kickstarter for the I don't know what edition of Neanderthal in Greenland, the Sierra Madre science-based dice games.
I have Greenland. I don't have Neanderthal. I missed picking that one up.
Oh yeah, go back this because like I got a chance because I was on their mailing list to like preview the Kickstarter page and the stretch goals. I want custom Neanderthal meeples, damn it! So people go back this.
I'll go back. I got a chance to play that one once, and I really liked it. You develop your brain and your speech patterns and what type of sexuality your cavemen are. It was really intriguing. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to pick up. So I could see how you could combine Greenland with it somehow, but I never got a chance to try that out.
Yeah, no, Greenland's was really good too. Like I kind of specifically never looked at the cards, so I would just be amused when they came out. And at one point, me and our buddy Nate were playing, and I just looked over. I'm like, "What the hell? You can domesticate orcas? I want domesticated orcas."
What's the one with the big horn on it? Anyway, I had to try to.
Oh, narwhals.
Yeah, a narwhal. That thing tore me up. I tried hunting that thing. I mean, that was the epic story of my Eskimos not faring so well.
Well, the thing I like about Greenland is apparently in the first rendition of the design, the designer wanted it to be historically accurate. So the winner of the game was going to be the last person that died. Like nobody was going to live.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty hilarious. Like you just keep on going because no one can survive.
Yeah,
I liked Greenland.
well,
that was a really cool
that.
3-player game.
Yeah, well, now it's going to be 4-player.
Oh, like my favorite thing to do in Greenland was that it's like, oh, here comes Christianity. I'm flipping your thing over. Buck.
Well, and one last quick story, and that'll get off of it. Like Phil Eklund was talking about a play test he did with Greenland, and his wife and this friend of theirs were doing monotheism and kicking his butt. So he went over to his friend and tried to flip him into Christianity, where you have a different win condition.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this guy just kind of glared at him, and he looked at Phil Eklund's wife, and it's like, let's wipe him off the map. Like, and they did. They just completely wiped him off the map. And Phil Eklund was like, it didn't, like, why did that bother him so much? And then he remembered his friend was Iranian and had been chased out of the country by the priests for basically not following the tenets of the religion or something like that. So he kind of triggered him a bit and ended up getting wiped off the board.
Yeah, I know you guys talk about that's Greenland's one of my favorite Phil Eklund games. It's just
it's a fun one.
Isn't there like an event that can wipe your entire tribe out? It's like just gone.
There's basically an event for having STDs.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it is.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to the Kickstarter getting funded. I hope it unlocks all the stretch goals I saw because, oh my God.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Andy. It sounds like you got some things to look forward to. How about you, TC?
Well, I got 2 games. One of them is directly your fault, Joe. I'm going to blame you for this one. Kate is actively looking for dungeon pets, and there is a really strong possibility we'll be getting that game soon. And she's very excited. And it's all because of your snake kitty.
I knew that one would work.
Yeah.
So there were so many. I pulled out all the stops in that one, man. I knew that like there's so many cute things to talk about.
And all it took was I showed her the cover of the game on Board Game Geek, and she's like, "Yes, yes." That's it.
It's a pretty brutal game, though. It's really hard.
Oh God, it's
really
it's mean.
Oh, then she'll love it.
I was gonna say it's precisely what you want.
What you need to do, TC, is go on to Meeple Source and buy their custom made dirt meeples because they look like little piles of poo. You can get rid of the brown cubes.
I'll definitely look into that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is we are Doctor Who Time of the Daleks is on its way. We will get to play it. I am quite excited because everyone in my family, including Liam, really enjoys Doctor Who. So I think it'll be the game the 4 of us will get to play. And then on a future episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, I will bring everyone on to talk about it.
Awesome.
I am a little concerned about it as I saw it played Wednesday night, and it seemed to me to be a wholly unremarkable game. But, you know, maybe that's what I need for a 14-year-old and an 8-year-old. And as long as we're flying around into TARDIS fighting Daleks, maybe that's all it needs to be. So I'll let you know. I'm excited. Try it out with the family.
Yeah. Something that just occurred to me, and I posted on the chat too, is one of those escape room board game companies needs to get a Doctor Who license because I think that would work so well together.
Oh yeah,
and I'm intrigued because Doctor Who is he doesn't fight. He like finds ways around to usually win. I'm curious how they're going to integrate the theme, how they're going to execute it, and if they can pull it off. So
hey, I have a sad thought to go off what Andy said. Time Stories basically tried to create their own Doctor Who.
Well, hey, there we go. There we go. As long as it's better than Time Stories, this board game will be a success. Thank you, Joe. You're giving me hope.
Sure, dude. All right, Tony, what are you looking forward to playing? What are you going to hype for us?
I'm looking forward to getting my Kickstarter copy of Rising Sun.
Oh, you and everyone else. What are you excited about this? I mean, you mentioned you're an aggressive player. What is it about Rising Sun that makes you so excited?
I actually don't know the rules too well, but I play Blood Rage and I really like that.
Yeah, I like Blood Rage as well.
Yeah, the same with Eric Lang. I think like every game I play, I notice like a trend. You know how Reiner Knizia, he has really simple rules and really free open space for players to do whatever they want. But he ties everything with like a scoring. Like the scoring drives the interaction and the incentives. With Eric Klein, like I feel like all of his game has like this timing factor. Sometimes like in a game, like there are certain things you want to go earlier, you want to go first, and there are certain things you want to do last, like after other people. So like there's this constant juggling between doing something earlier and doing something later. Like there's pros and cons.
You want to get things out, and you kind of want certain maybe upgrades in the round, or you want some other fight to happen before you can start your fight. I get what you're saying, because like there will be times when I've got an action I want to take, but I know that the time isn't quite right for it. So I'll take a different action, maybe even something that I wasn't that worried about. Just like, here, I'll play this quest or whatever they're called, like missions, and I'll just play this mission. I can play it whenever, but I'll play it now. And that kind of lets you, that's an interesting thing. I never thought about how those quests impact the timing of the game. But in Blood Rage, that's definitely the case. And I'm excited to see it because it mixes Blood Rage with diplomacy, and it does so in like some sort of a digestible box. And I don't want to say that it mixes Blood Rage and diplomacy. It's kind of like, his exploration of diplomacy, which is an absolute classic.
I'm not actually like looking forward that much to that part of the game. The negotiation. I'm not like huge on negotiation unless it's like really fits with the rest of the game, like diplomacy or Rex.
Ooh,
I love Rex.
That one.
Yeah, I love Rex. So we played that for our New Year Eve's party.
Nice.
With 6 players.
Oh, TC.
That is my favorite board game of all time. I love my Rex.
Yeah, I think you just won over TC on your side there, Tony. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for joining us. It's just been a treat. It's been a pleasure. And, I'm looking forward to what's going to be coming out from Monsoon Publishing from you. When you see your name on a box, I'm immediately going to know there's something being explored here, and it's definitely been play tested a lot.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Good time.
Well, also thanks to Andy and to TC. I know it's been a long haul here. Andy is going to have to wake up early. Unlike me, I've already got a 2-hour delay. Oh, sorry, Andy.
And my kids are urban school anyway. I would have had to get up.
Yeah, they don't.
It's only 9:15 here. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Well, to give Andy the chance to go to bed and actually wake up in the morning, we're going to have to catch you guys later. Thanks so much to Jerry, to Murr, who ended up coming, to Norm, who was here earlier, and to Carter, and also other individuals who I've not met who just popped up in our chat for the first time. Hopefully we'll be able to keep seeing you guys, and it's great to have the community participate. Really enjoy seeing you guys there. This has been this week's episode of The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. Hope you guys all have a great week of gaming, and catch us all next week on The Good, the Board, and the Ugly.